Greetings everyone, welcome to a beautiful spring day here in New York City. Looking through my dirty windows, the sun is beating in, pelting me with its beautiful rays. I wanted to do another 5x5 today since people seem to like those to some degree. But first up, I wanted to ask you, do you have any questions for me? I guess I should do a Facebook Live, but I'm not really a Facebook Live kind of guy. But perhaps you might have some questions for me in particular. About records. I was going to do a video on how to clean stickers off of records, but after a general post in my vinyl group, it seems like most people already know all about that. We have a lot of people who know everything. Anyway, you know, I write about jazz. I have for many years. I was a jazz drummer, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Maybe you have some questions for me regarding records, or how to collect records, or where to look for records. There is the giant, long, deep rabbit hole of grading records and identifying records. When it comes to Blue Note records, there was obviously Fred Cohen's A Guide to Collecting Blue Note Records. No one has really done that for Prestige or Riverside or Savoy, even though I would venture to say that if you want to learn about the depths of some of the smaller indie labels, you would watch Daniel Van Elge's The Jazz Shepherd channel. He goes so deep into the minutia, plus he has all the records. It's hard to find those records now. Things like Savoy have always been really hard to find. Anyway, you got any questions, put them down below, and maybe I'll do a video just to answer those questions. Anyway, 5x5 over my morning coffee. Oh, we're playing this in the background. Indo Jazz Suite, Joe Harriet. Let's go down here. Let's pull some records. Pull one out down here. Griffin Lock, Johnny Griffin, Eddie Lockjaw Davis. You know, these guys made a series of records together that are classic blowing sessions. Pedal to the metal. Blow for all your money's worth. It's funny because introducing Johnny Griffin on Blue Note is another sort of a blowing session, in that Johnny Griffin is playing so fast. Those are really fast tunes. But Lockjaw is kind of the opposite of that. A lot of his early records on Prestige are really slow tempos, which I really love. But it's funny that they never switched guises in that way. I mean, Griffin's career was a little bit longer, I think. Perhaps he was younger. There are some examples of Lockjaw Davis playing faster, but I focus on him just for those slow tempos with Shirley Scott. I love those records, those many cookbook records he's done in Prestige. But this is a great meeting of two masterful minds. It's an early stereo. It is a Jazzland. I'll do a picture of this, a Jazzland copy. This is not in your northeastern urban centers. This is not a hard record to find, but it's hard to find it in good shape, because people really played these Lockjaw Davis records because it was party music in a way. I guess in urban centers, in black bars, organ bars, jazz bars, in Philly or New York or Newark, or all up and down the eastern seaboard, as they used to call it. But this is a great record. But if you can't find this, I'd buy any of the Eddie Lockjaw Davis records on Prestige. I even think the later period Eddie Lockjaw Davis, when he's on Steeplechase and he's playing a lot in Europe, those are fun records too. And his debut, which I believe is Count Basie Presents on Roulette, is really great. Or maybe it's a King record, I think is actually his debut. But I pull it out here, but that one on King, it's like got this real kind of hipster, almost like Zoot Suit cover appeal. Anyway, this is a great record. I love both of these guys. They're badass tenor saxophonists. Let's go down here. Let's go down here. I know we're getting to the end of the alphabet down here. Why am I'm probably going to pull an ECM record out. No, I'm pulling out Shirley Scott, great Scott. You know, Shirley Scott made a lot of records. Really, she made more records than Griffin and Lockjaw. And this is an early Prestige. I don't know if you can see, such a beautiful cover. Prestige 7143. The Shirley Scott Trio with Arthur Edgehill and George Duvivier. I mean, this is the bomb. I mean, I love the colors. Someone said that when they laminated these jackets, that did something to the colors. And you get a good shot of Shirley playing the organ keys, which you don't see very often. Anyway, this is, early Shirley Scott. Ranges from like roller rink sound, which some people don't dig, to just slow, slow burning tempos. She does the Scott, All of You, Goodbye, Pour, or For rather, which I wonder if that's the Miles Davis For. I kind of doubt it. Nothing Ever Changes My Love, Trees, Cherokee, the great, I believe that's Ray Noble, Cherokee, the very fast burning trumpet tune, and Brazil. Shirley Scott records as of a few years ago, were easy to find and they were cheap because nobody cared about her. But then people like me go on YouTube and say, hey, she's so great. So they're harder to find, but they're always, like the Lockjaw Davis records, very hard to find in good shape. Let's bend down to the lower part of the alphabet. Hubert Law's CTI In the Beginning. This is not a hard record to find. I have mixed feelings about the CTI records. Some of them, like the Bob James records, actually a lot of them are just smoking ridiculous records. But the problem with some of the CTI records is it's the 70s era of let's overdub everything, including the elephant and the crazy lady next door. And you can hear the overdubs. They sound sort of unnatural, especially when they lay in like horn lines or string sections. They just sound kind of unnatural because it's the early days of overdubbing and people in different studios, and it doesn't always sound great. But in saying that, this is not one of those records, I believe. This is a live recording with Steve Gadd, and who else is on this record? Again, beautiful laminate, nice, nice gatefold. In case you didn't know what he looks like, there's Hubert Law's. You know, back in the 50s through the 60s, the flute right there, was very common. Lalo Schifrin used a lot of flute in his soundtracks. His wonderful movie soundtracks like It Takes a Thief or Bullet or Mission Impossible. And you might think, the flute, that's kind of like, some people think of it like the organ. It's kind of old school, it's kind of cheesy. Listen to this record. Hubert Law is the king of jazz flute. I once saw him at the Blue Note a few years ago, and I was kind of like, okay, we're going to hear a guy play jazz flute. It was incredible. He is a ferocious musician, total command of the instrument, and a boundary-stretching musician who pushes the flute much farther than you would expect. But this is a great record. There's some, I think, some classical allusions here, some pavans or something like that. Let's take a look. And I think he made a few records for CTI, Creed Taylor Incorporated. In the Beginning restoration, he does a Gymnopede by Sati Come Ye Disconsolate Airgen, which I believe is a Sonny Rollins tune. So it's a good cross section. Rod Carter, Steve Gadd, Ierto, Dave Friedman, Gene Bertoncini, Claire Fisher, and Bob James, and Richard T on keyboards. Ronnie Laws on sax, yada yada yada. The CTI CTX 3x3. What does that mean? I don't know. But this again is not a hard record to find, generally speaking, because it's kind of devalued. I think people don't really know how great this is. It's just one of those classic CTIs where they're not overdubbing, where they're playing live. And if you want to get a little jazz flute in your head, you can't do better than Hubert Law. Let's pull out a Blue Note record. Let Freedom Ring. Once again, I'll give props to my good buddy Daniel Van Elge. We had an ongoing argument that, and there's people out there who get all upset. Oh, you're putting black musicians back in the ghetto. Oh my God. You know, if you can't give black musicians their due as the people who created jazz, and every major innovator on every instrument is black, in some ways sort of continues to be, then you really got no business watching my channel. You need to go back to school or read some books by Amiri Baraka. But anyway, this is one of the great Jackie Mclean albums on Blue Note from the 60s. There's a whole stretch of Jackie Mclean albums that are essential. Demon's Dance, It's Time, it's Let Freedom Ring. There's a duplicate. There's a Hank Mobley record. Capuchin Swing. Art Taylor's on a lot of these records. About Soul, a little later period Blue Note for Jackie where he gets a little funky, maybe a little avant-garde. That's Walter Davis, that's not right. Jackie's Bag, excellent, in the pocket, early, with Donald Byrd, Sonny Clark, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones, an essential Blue Note recording. You must have this. Jackie's Bag. One Step Beyond, I think with Tony Williams. This is another essential jazz recording. When I see this, I also think of the Andrew Hill record. Same rhythm section, I believe. And this is just as listenable as the day they made it, as far thinking as the day they made it, forward thinking rather. Mode for Joe. You see, I have trouble with the alphabet. I'm numerically challenged, but I'm also Jackie Mclean, Let Freedom Ring. Let Freedom Ring alludes to the whole civil rights movement of the 60s. This is a New York pressing. Jackie Mclean, Walter Davis, Herbie Lewis, Billy Higgins. Billy Higgins, the purveyor of the great happy jazz ride cymbal beat. Herbie Lewis on bass. I don't know much about Herbie Lewis. Walter Davis made a couple of incredibly collectible records for Blue Note. A really funky, cerebrally advanced player. This record belonged to Herbert L. Crawford, it says here. Herbert. I feel like all the Jackie McLean records on Blue Note are essential. Now, at first you might have a little trouble with his sound. He seemed to perpetually play off-key. But the longer you listen, you understand that's his style. And he isn't off-key, he's just got his own thing. He was a wonderful composer. And he went on to make records on Steeplechase and Muse, I think. What's that, 4? Johnny Hodges, The Rabbit. One of his many records on Verve. Johnny Hodges and his orchestra Blues Aplenty, best known for all his amazing work with Duke Ellington. You know, again, like Jackie McLean, he's kind of the opposite of Jackie McLean. I believe they're both alto players. Where Jackie McLean is acerbic, his tunes are as well, you know, cutting, angular, propulsive, in your face, driving. Johnny Hodges is sitting down, you know, with his pinky up, having a cup of tea. You know, he had such a beautiful sound, he could play anything. He just had this beautiful, gorgeous tone that you spotlight a mile away. And that's what's so great about any great jazz musician, is they have their own sound. It's a unique sound, a unique style. That's what every jazz musician wants. You don't want to sound like everybody else. Like a Wallace Roney, who his goal was to sound just like Miles, or Cindy Blackman, whose goal was to sound just like Tony Williams. And they did, but like, where's Cindy? Where's Wallace in that makeup? But Johnny Hodges, you know, I'll be honest, these records don't really sell. When I say they don't sell at the Jazz Record Center where I work on Saturdays. You know, easily the most important jazz record emporium on the East Coast. And we have a particularly big fill right now. We must have 30 Johnny Hodges records. And people just kind of sleep on them. But these records have beautiful swing, often with Ellington sidemen, and they're so much fun to listen to. Who's on this record? This is a some sort of a reissue. Polygram Group. Johnny Hodges, Ben Webster, Roy Eldridge, Vic Dickinson, Billy Strayhorn on piano. That's different. Jimmy Wood on bass and Sam Wood on Jimmy Wood on bass and Sam Woodyard on drums. But I would buy any Johnny Hodges record. Early period, later period, Verve period, offshoot minor label, because you're still going to get that beautiful, languorous, mellow, happy sound, even though I've heard rumors in real life he was a real prick. But anyway, once again, if you have any questions for me and my little brain trust, I'd be glad to talk to you. We can talk about cleaning records, we can talk about gear, we can talk about my favorite cartridges that I have heard. You know, that might be something to do. Some of my favorite cartridges running a wide gamut of sound. Anyway, thanks for checking in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.